The morning sun rose over New Sejong like it always did, painting the farming fields in shades of gold and orange. Governor Park Min-ho stood at his office window, watching the colonists begin their daily work. From here, everything looked peaceful. The tractors moved slowly through the crop fields. Children walked toward the small school building. Smoke rose from the kitchen chimneys as families prepared breakfast. To anyone watching, New Sejong looked like exactly what it was supposed to be. A poor farming colony on the edge of human space. A place where Earth sent people who wanted a fresh start but couldn't afford anything better. The equipment was old. The buildings needed paint. The communication arrays barely worked half the time. Park smiled slightly at that last thought. The arrays worked perfectly fine. They just looked broken. He turned away from the window and sat at his desk. The morning reports were already waiting for him. Crop yields were acceptable. Water recycling systems running normally. The school needed new teaching materials. The medical clinic requested more supplies. Normal problems for a normal colony. Except, New Sejong was not normal at all. Park heard footsteps in the hallway. A moment later, Kim Ji-woo entered, without knocking. The big farmer wiped dirt from his hands onto his work pants. His face was weathered from years under the sun, but his eyes were sharp and alert. "Morning, Governor," Kim said. "Got those sensor readings you asked about?" Park gestured to the chair across from his desk. "Show me." Kim pulled out a small data pad. It looked ancient, with a cracked screen and missing buttons. But when he activated it, the display showed detailed scanning data that would make a military-grade sensor jealous. "3 nights in a row now," Kim said, pointing at the screen. "Small ships doing flyovers. They stay just outside our official sensor range, but the buried arrays picked them up clean." Park studied the data carefully. The ships were trying to be stealthy. They were good at it too. Any normal colony would never have noticed them. But New Sejong had sensors hidden in the fields, buried under the roads, disguised as broken equipment. "Kreth design," Park said quietly. "Probably scout ships." "That's what I thought too," Kim agreed. "Want me to pass the word?" Park nodded, quietly. No changes to routine. Everyone keeps doing exactly what they've been doing. Kim stood to leave, then paused at the door. "How long do you think we have? If they're scouting? Maybe a week. Maybe less." Park met his old friend's eyes. "Make sure everyone is ready. We've been ready since day one, Governor. You know that." After Kim left, Park returned to looking out his window. Down in the fields, he could see Lee Soo-jin leading her class of children on their morning nature walk. She pointed at plants and asked questions. The children laughed and raised their hands eagerly. Teacher Lee had been a tactical communications officer for 12 years before she retired. Now she taught mathematics and biology to children. But her classroom had reinforced walls, and the nature walks always included lessons on the safest routes through the colony during emergencies. In the medical clinic, Dr. Choi Young-hee was probably reviewing supplies. She treated cuts and colds and helped deliver babies. She was kind and patient with every patient. She also knew exactly how to field treat plasma burns and could perform battlefield surgery in her sleep. Farmer Kim would go back to his fields now. He would check the crops and adjust the irrigation systems and repair equipment. The fact that he had been an engineering specialist in Earth's Defense Force was something most people forgot. The fact that his irrigation systems could pump industrial-grade adhesive compounds through every field in the colony was something very few people knew. This was New Sejong's secret. Earth's weakest colony was populated almost entirely by retired military personnel. Soldiers who had finished their service. Engineers who wanted peace. Specialists who had done their time and wanted to grow old somewhere quiet. They had come here to farm, to teach, to build new lives away from war. But they had not forgotten their training. And Earth had not sent them here by accident. Park had designed defensive systems for 20 years before accepting this position. He knew how to hide weapons in plain sight. He knew how to make a fortress look like a farm. And he knew exactly why Earth had asked him to build New Sejong the way he did. The galaxy was not as peaceful as many species wanted to believe. There were empires that expanded by conquest, raiders who attacked weak targets, pirates who thought isolated colonies were easy prey. Earth needed eyes and ears on the frontier. They needed settlements that could defend themselves. But they also needed those settlements to look helpless and unimportant, places that aggressive species would ignore or underestimate. So, Earth built failed colonies. Poor settlements with old equipment and no obvious military value. And then they staffed them with the most dangerous civilians in human space. Park's datapad buzzed. Another report from the hidden sensor network. The scout ships were being more obvious now. They wanted to be seen. They wanted the colony to panic. He opened a communication channel. "This is Governor Park to all department heads. Morning briefing in 10 minutes. Attendance mandatory." One by one, his staff confirmed. They sounded casual and relaxed. Anyone listening to the communications would hear a routine administrative meeting. 10 minutes later, Park sat in the conference room with his senior staff. Teacher Lee was there. Dr. Choi, Farmer Kim, Engineer Han, Maintenance Chief Yun. All of them looked like simple colonial administrators. All of them had served in Earth's military for at least a decade. "The Kreeth are coming," Park said simply. "Scout ships have been observing us for 3 days. Based on their patterns, I estimate we have less than 48 hours before they attack." No one looked surprised or afraid. They had all known this day would come eventually. That was why they were here. "Do we call for help?" Dr. Choi asked. Park shook his head. "Nearest Earth defense fleet is 16 days away. By the time they arrive, it will be over one way or another." "So we use Protocol Dandelion," Engineer Han said. It was not a question. "Yes. Begin preparations immediately. But nothing visible. Everything stays hidden until they commit to the attack." Teacher Lee smiled slightly. "Let them think we're helpless farmers until it's too late." "Exactly," Park agreed. "The Kreeth are good warriors, but they're also arrogant. They think overwhelming force guarantees victory. We're going to teach them a different lesson." The meeting continued for another hour. They reviewed defensive positions, checked weapon systems, confirmed that every colonist knew their role. By the time they finished, Park felt confident, not happy. He hated that violence was necessary, but confident that his people would survive. That night, Park stood outside his residence and looked up at the stars. Somewhere up there, Kreeth commanders were planning their attack. They were probably celebrating already, thinking about the easy conquest ahead of them. They saw New Sejong as Earth's embarrassment. A failed colony, full of poor farmers. An easy target that would send a message to humanity. That humans were not as strong as they pretended. That their expansion could be stopped. Park allowed himself a cold smile. Let them think that. Let them come with their superior weapons and their elite warriors. Let them expect an easy victory. The Kreeth were about to learn something important about humanity. Humans didn't need the best equipment to be dangerous. They just needed determination and the will to survive. And on that front, New Sejong had more than enough of both. 2 days later, the Kreeth fleet arrived. The alarm in Governor Park's office made a soft chiming sound. Nothing dramatic. Nothing that would cause panic. But everyone in New Sejong knew what it meant. The enemy had arrived. Park walked calmly to his command center. It was hidden in the basement of the administration building. To visitors, it looked like a storage room full of old supplies. But behind a false wall was equipment that would impress a military flagship. His senior staff were already there. On the main screen, 20 Kreeth warships hung in orbit above the planet. They were arranged in an attack formation. Clean, professional, intimidating. "They brought their A-team," Engineer Han observed. "Those are Dominion military ships, not pirates or raiders." Park nodded. The Kreeth Dominion was one of the more aggressive empires in this sector. They had been expanding steadily for decades. Usually, they attacked non-aligned worlds or weak colonies, places with no real defenses, places like New Sejong was supposed to be. The communication system activated. A Kreeth face appeared on screen. The commander had 4 eyes arranged in a square pattern. His skin was dark blue and covered in ritual scarring that marked him as a veteran warrior. When he spoke, his voice was deep and confident. "Human colony," the Kreeth said. "I am Commander Vex Thor of the Kreeth Dominion 3rd Fleet. You are surrounded and outmatched. Surrender immediately, and you will be treated according to the laws of conquest. Resist, and you will be destroyed. You have 5 of your minutes to decide." Park activated his own camera. He made sure he looked like exactly what he was supposed to be. A tired, middle-aged man in civilian clothes. Someone who spent more time on farming reports than military strategy. "Commander Vex Thor," Park said politely. "I am Governor Park Min-ho of New Sejong Colony. I appreciate your directness. However, I must decline your offer. We are a peaceful settlement under Earth protection. Any attack on us will be considered an act of war against humanity." On screen, Vex Thor's expression changed to something that might have been amusement. "Your nearest military support is weeks away, human, and your colony has no defenses that our sensors can detect. You are farmers with old equipment. This is not a negotiation. Surrender or die." Park allowed himself a small, sad smile. "Commander, I will give you one warning. You still have time to leave. If you attack this colony, you will regret it. Please, reconsider." Vex Thor's 4 eyes narrowed. Brave words from a helpless administrator. "Very well. You have chosen death. We will be merciful and make it quick." The screen went dark. Park took a deep breath and looked at his team. "Mark the time. Let's see how fast we can do this." "Protocol Dandelion is active," Engineer Han reported. Park opened the colony-wide channel. "Attention, New Sejong. This is the governor. Protocol Dandelion is now in effect. Everyone knows what to do. Stay safe. Stay smart. We'll get through this together." Throughout the colony, colonists received the message. They did not panic. They did not run. They simply moved to their assigned positions, with practiced calm. In the school, Teacher Lee dismissed her class. The children filed out in an orderly line and went to the reinforced shelter under the cafeteria. Lee herself went to her real station, the communications hub disguised as a library. At the medical clinic, Dr. Choi directed her patients to the underground treatment area. Then she activated the clinic's secondary systems. Defensive turrets rose from hidden compartments in the roof. Medical supply drones reconfigured themselves into automated defense platforms. Farmer Kim climbed into his tractor. To anyone watching, he was just moving equipment to safety. In reality, he was taking position at the eastern field defense grid. His tractor had armor plating under the rusty exterior. And the agricultural equipment in the storage barn behind him would make a very different kind of harvest today. In orbit, the Kreeth fleet began its descent. 20 ships carrying 5,000 elite warriors. Plasma weapons charged. Shields at maximum. They came down like metal rain. Confident and unstoppable. Commander Vex Thor watched from his flagship. "Target the administration building first. Then destroy their power generation. After that, we land troops and secure the resources." "Yes, Commander," his weapons officer replied. "Entering. Firing range in 30 seconds. "Commander," the sensor officer interrupted. "What is strange?" Vex Thor demanded. "The colony's communication towers. They're moving. On the ground, all across New Sejong. Structures that looked like broken communications equipment suddenly activated. Panels fell away, revealing clean metal underneath. Old-looking towers straightened and locked into position. What had seemed like civilian infrastructure transformed into something very different. Military-grade railgun batteries. Evasive action! Vexthor shouted. But it was too late. The first salvo from New Sejong's hidden defenses crossed the distance in less than a second. Solid metal projectiles moving at incredible speeds. 3 Kreth landing craft exploded before they could react. 2 more spiraled out of control. Their systems shredded by the kinetic impacts. Return fire, Vexthor ordered. All ships target those weapons. The Kreth fleet opened fire. Plasma bolts and missiles screamed toward the colony. But the defenses were already moving. The railgun platforms shifted positions. Defensive shields activated around critical structures. Automated countermeasures intercepted incoming fire. More importantly, the Kreth had targeted the wrong things. The structures they thought were weapons were actually decoys. The real defensive systems were buried underground, or hidden inside buildings that looked like ordinary homes. Another volley from the colony. 4 more Kreth ships took critical damage. 1 exploded completely. The others managed emergency landings, their crews scrambling to exit the burning wreckage. How is this possible? Vexthor stared at his tactical display in disbelief. They're farmers. Our intelligence said no military presence. His intelligence officer was frantically reviewing data. Commander, those aren't communication towers. They're disguised weapons platforms, and I'm reading power signatures all over the colony. Underground installations. Hidden bunkers. This isn't a farming settlement. This is a fortified military base, disguised as a colony. Vexthor felt something he had not experienced in many years. Fear. All ships. Establish orbit. Do not land. I repeat, do not land. But half his fleet was already committed to atmospheric insertion. They could not abort without catastrophic crashes. They had no choice but to continue their descent into what was rapidly becoming obvious as a trap. The remaining ships came down in the planned landing zones. Big open fields, perfect for unloading troops and equipment. The Kreth warriors emerged quickly and professionally. They established perimeter defenses. They scanned for threats. They followed their training perfectly. That was when the irrigation systems activated. All across the landing zones, sprinkler systems erupted. But instead of water, they sprayed a thick, clear liquid. It covered the Kreth warriors instantly. Within seconds, it hardened into an incredibly strong adhesive compound. Warriors found themselves stuck to the ground, to each other, to their own equipment. Chemical attack, a Kreth squad leader shouted. Deploy countermeasures. But before they could act, the greenhouse vents opened. Gas poured out across the fields. Not poison. Something that made Kreth eyes burn and lungs seize. Concentrated capsaicin compounds. Pepper spray on an industrial scale. Through the gas and chaos, human figures appeared. They moved with military precision. They wore simple farming clothes, but carried weapons that were anything but simple. Modified industrial equipment that had been converted into devastating combat tools. Kim Ji-woo drove his tractor straight into a Kreth formation. The vehicle's hidden armor deflected their plasma fire. The harvesting equipment on the front, sharp blades designed to cut crops, cut through Kreth combat armor just as easily. A Kreth warrior managed to tear free from the adhesive and charged at what he thought was a human civilian. The elderly-looking woman didn't run. She pivoted smoothly, redirected his attack, and used his own momentum to slam him into the ground. Then she disabled him with a precise strike to his nerve cluster. Her name was Grandmother Park. She ran the colony's community center. She had also been a hand-to-hand combat instructor for 18 years. All over the landing zones, the scene repeated itself. Kreth warriors, trained and equipped for planetary conquest, found themselves outmaneuvered by farmers who fought like special forces operators. Because that's exactly what they were. In his command center, Governor Park watched the tactical display with grim satisfaction. 4 minutes had passed since the Kreth entered weapons range. They had lost 11 ships and roughly 2,000 warriors. The remaining forces were trapped in pre-planned kill zones, confused and desperate. Commander Vex Thor is trying to retreat the orbital ships, Engineer Han reported. Park nodded slowly. Show them what happens if they run. Hidden among the asteroids in the system's belt, platforms that had seemed like mining equipment activated. They had been there for months. Waiting. Silent. Now they spoke with the voice of railguns and missile batteries. Commander Vex Thor watched in horror as his retreat became a slaughter. Ships that tried to flee found themselves targeted by weapons they couldn't even see. His fleet, which had been so confident 20 minutes ago, was being systematically destroyed. On the surface, Kreth warriors began surrendering. They threw down their weapons and activated their emergency beacons. They had come to conquer farmers. Instead, they had attacked veterans who knew every trick, every strategy, every weakness in Kreth military doctrine. Park checked his display. 9 minutes and 47 seconds since first contact. The battle was effectively over. New Sejong had 12 wounded colonists. No deaths. The Kreth had lost everything. He opened a channel to the surviving Kreth. Commander Vex Thor. This is Governor Park. You are surrounded. Your fleet is destroyed. Your warriors are captured. Surrender now, and you will be treated with dignity and respect under human military law. There was a long silence. Then Vex's Thor's voice. Quiet and defeated. How? You were supposed to be helpless. Park's response was gentle but firm. We are farmers, Commander, but we're human farmers, and humans survive. The battlefield fell silent, except for the crackling of burning Kreth ships and the quiet sounds of captured warriors being processed. Governor Park stood in his command center, watching the aftermath through dozens of camera feeds. 10 minutes ago, this had been a peaceful farming colony. Now, it looked like a war zone. But even in the chaos, his people moved with purpose. Dr. Choi and her medical teams were already treating wounded Kreth prisoners alongside the few injured colonists. Teacher Lee coordinated the collection of weapons and equipment with the efficiency of someone who had done this many times before. Farmer Kim and his crew used their agricultural equipment to clear debris and secure the crash sites. Park opened a secure channel to Earth Defense Command. It would take several minutes for the message to reach Earth and for a response to return. In the meantime, he had other responsibilities. All teams, status report, he ordered calmly. Engineer Han responded first. Eastern Defense Grid secure. All systems performed within acceptable parameters. No permanent damage to any installations. Medical here. Dr. Choi's voice came through. 12 of our people injured, none seriously. Approximately 300 Kreth wounded. We're treating them now. I need more medical supplies from Storage 3. Education sector secure, Teacher Lee reported. All children safe in shelters, no damage to essential structures. The school will need a new roof, but classes can continue. One by one, the reports came in. The colony had some damage, mostly superficial. A few buildings would need repairs. Some fields had been torn up by combat and crash landings, but the core infrastructure remained intact. The hidden defenses had worked exactly as designed. Park allowed himself a moment of relief. Then he focused on the next problem. They had approximately 2,000 Kreth prisoners. That was a lot of enemy soldiers to manage safely. Commander Park? A new voice on the channel. Young Corporal Min from security. We have the Kreth commander. He's requesting to speak with you directly. Bring him to conference room 2, Park ordered. Standard security protocols. 10 minutes later, Park sat across a table from Commander Vex Thor. The Kreth commander looked different now. His armor was damaged. One of his 4 eyes was covered with a medical patch. His proud warrior bearing had been replaced with exhausted defeat. 2 of Park's security staff stood by the door. They looked relaxed, but Park knew they were ready to respond to any threat in less than a second. Both had been special operations soldiers before retirement. "Governor Park," Vexthor said quietly. His voice carried none of the confidence from earlier. "I do not understand what happened. Our intelligence was thorough. This colony was supposed to be defenseless. I know. I think the pain to Panlins, but it see them pleasing to be. I know." Park poured 2 cups of tea. He pushed one across the table to Vexthor. The Kreeth commander looked at it suspiciously. "It's just tea, Commander," Park said with a slight smile. "We're not going to poison you. You're a prisoner of war now. That means you have rights under human military law." Vexthor took the cup, but didn't drink. "You let us land. You could have destroyed all our ships in orbit. Why allow us to reach the surface? Because destroying your ships would have killed all your warriors," Park explained. "We only wanted to stop your attack, not commit genocide. Once you were on the ground, you could surrender when you realized the situation. Surrender." Vexthor said the word like it tasted bad. "My warriors do not surrender. We fight until victory or death. Your warriors surrendered today," Park pointed out gently. "Because they're smart enough to know when continuing to fight is pointless. That's not weakness, Commander. That's wisdom." Vexthor was quiet for a long moment. "You are not farmers. We are farmers," Park corrected. "We're also engineers, teachers, doctors, parents, and community members. We grow crops and raise children and build lives here. But yes, most of us also used to be soldiers. That doesn't mean we stopped being everything else." "This makes no sense," Vexthor said, frustration clear in his voice. "Why would Earth's warriors pretend to be weak? Why hide your strength? If other species knew the truth, they would fear to attack any human colony." Park considered his answer carefully. "Commander, let me ask you something. Why did you attack New Sejong? Because you appeared weak. An easy target to demonstrate Kreeth's strength." "Exactly. You attacked because you thought we were helpless. If we had looked strong, would you have attacked? No. We would have chosen a different target, and that different target would have been another colony that actually was weak and helpless," Park said. "Other colonies that don't have our advantages. Places with real farmers and teachers who just want to live in peace. Do you understand now? We look weak. So predators like you attack us instead of attacking them." Vexthor's remaining 3 functional eyes widened slightly. "You are bait. A trap for aggressive species. We prefer to think of ourselves as guardians," Park replied. "But yes, New Sejong exists partly to protect other human settlements. We look like easy prey, so that actual civilians don't become targets." Outside the conference room, the work of securing the colony continued. Farmer Kim walked through his eastern fields, assessing the damage. Several acres of crops had been destroyed in the fighting. The irrigation system would need repairs. One of his storage barns had taken a plasma hit and was still smoking. But Kim had seen much worse during his military service. This was just work to be done. He made notes on his datapad, planning the repairs. The fields would recover. They always did. "Hey, Farmer Kim," someone called. It was Jungmin Soo, who ran the colony's equipment maintenance depot. "That trick with the adhesive foam worked perfectly. We should increase production." "Never know when we'll need it again," Kim laughed. "Always thinking ahead." "That's good. But let's hope we don't need it again anytime soon." In the medical clinic, Dr. Choi moved between beds with quiet efficiency. Human and Kreeth patients received the same level of care. One of the Kreeth warriors, a young female with a broken arm, watched Choi work with confused fascination. "Why do you help us?" the warrior asked in broken human language. "We came to conquer you." Choi carefully set the warrior's broken bone before answering. "Because you're hurt, and I'm a doctor. That's reason enough. Also, the war is over. You lost." Now you're just people who need medical attention. I do not understand humans, the warrior said quietly. That's okay, Choi replied with a gentle smile. Most days I don't understand us either. We're complicated. Now hold still, while I apply the cast. In the school shelter, Teacher Lee was helping the children return to their classroom. The kids were excited and asking questions about the battle. Lee answered them honestly but carefully, making sure to emphasize the right lessons. Miss Lee, were you scared? A small boy asked. A little bit, Lee admitted. Being scared is normal. But being scared doesn't mean you stop doing what needs to be done. All of you went to the shelter, calmly and quietly. You followed the rules. That helped keep everyone safe. You should be proud. A girl raised her hand. Are the aliens bad people? Lee thought about that question carefully. They made a bad choice. They chose to attack us. But that doesn't make them bad people. They're prisoners now. And we'll treat them fairly and with respect. Because how we treat others says something about who we are. Back in the command center, Park received the first response from Earth Defense Command. Admiral Torres appeared on screen. She looked impressed and slightly amused. Governor Park, we've reviewed the battle data you transmitted. Very efficient work. 10 minutes is a new record for repelling a full-scale invasion. Thank you, Admiral. Though I wish the invasion hadn't been necessary at all. Understood. We're dispatching a transport ship to collect the prisoners. It will arrive in 6 days. Can you maintain security until then? Not a problem. The prisoners are cooperating. Most of them seem relieved. The fighting is over. Torres nodded. I imagine they are. The Kreth have never encountered human defensive strategy before. This will probably change their entire approach to expansion in this sector. Good work, Governor. Earth is proud of New Sejong. After the communication ended, Park walked outside. The artificial sun of Harmony 7 was setting, painting the sky in beautiful colors. Around him, colonists were cleaning up, repairing damage, getting ready to return to normal life. Normal life. That was what they all wanted. To grow crops, to raise families, to teach children, to build something good and lasting. The fact that they could also defend themselves with deadly efficiency was just a tool, a necessary skill that they hoped to never need again, but would always maintain. Commander Vex Thor was given quarters in a secured building. It was comfortable and clean. Guard outside the door, but not treated like a dangerous criminal. Park had arranged for him to have access to communication equipment so he could contact the Kreth Dominion. That night, Vex Thor composed a message to his government. It was not a message of defiance or promises of revenge. It was a warning. To the Dominion Council, he wrote carefully, our attack on the human colony New Sejong has failed completely. The colony was not defenseless as our intelligence indicated. It was a sophisticated military installation disguised as a civilian settlement. Human casualties were minimal. Our losses were total. I strongly recommend we reconsider all plans for human territorial expansion. These beings are far more dangerous than we understood. They do not need obvious military might to destroy us. They only need us to underestimate them. I survived only because they chose mercy. That mercy should not be mistaken for weakness. He sent the message and sat in the quiet room. Outside his window, he could see human colonists still working, repairing their home, talking and laughing, despite everything that had happened today. Vex's Thor had fought in many battles across many worlds. He had conquered systems and defeated armies, but he had never encountered anything like humanity, a species that could be both fierce warriors and gentle farmers. People who could destroy you completely and then offer you tea afterward. For the first time in his military career, Vex Thor was glad he had lost. The news traveled fast, faster than anyone expected. Within hours of the battle, information was spreading through the galactic network. By the next morning, every major species in the sector knew what had happened at New Sejong. Earth's weakest colony had destroyed a Kreth Dominion invasion fleet in less than 10 minutes. Governor Park sat in his office, watching the galactic news feeds on his display. Different species had different reactions. Some were shocked. Some were frightened. Some were calling for immediate diplomatic meetings. The commentary ranged from disbelief to concern to outright fear. "They're calling it the 10-minute war," Engineer Han said from the doorway. "It's already become famous. Or infamous, depending on who you ask." Park rubbed his tired eyes. He had not slept much since the battle. Too much to organize. Too many reports to file. Too many decisions to make. Any response from the Kreth Dominion government? Official statement just came through. They're apologizing to Earth and requesting negotiations. They claim Commander Vex Thor acted without proper authorization. Han smirked slightly. Interesting how he didn't need authorization until after he lost. "Politics," Park said with a tired smile. "They need to save face. Let them have their fiction. What matters is they won't attack again. The Galactic Council has requested you attend an emergency session," Han continued. "They want to hear directly from you about the colony's defensive capabilities." Park groaned. "I hate council meetings. They spend hours talking and never actually decide anything useful. Earth's ambassador says it's important. The council is worried. A lot of species are reconsidering their assumptions about human colonies now." 2. Good. Let them reconsider. Maybe they'll think twice before attacking any of our settlements. Later that day, Park made time to walk through the colony. It had been 3 days since the battle. Already, most of the damage was repaired. The crash sites had been cleared. The fields were being replanted. Children were back in school. Life was returning to normal. Except it would never be quite normal again. The secret was out. Farmer Kim was supervising the repair of his irrigation system when Park found him. The big man was covered in mud, but looked satisfied with the progress. "Governor, come to check on the work? Just wanted to see how things were going," Park replied. "Oh, sure. We lost maybe 5% of this season's crop. That's nothing. We've got backup supplies. Nobody will go hungry." Kim wiped his hands on a rag. "Though I have to say, I'm getting tired of reporters asking for interviews." Park laughed. "You too? I've had 27 interview requests since yesterday. From species I've never even heard of. What are you telling them?" "The truth. That we're a farming colony. That we want to be left in peace. That we'll defend ourselves if necessary." Park looked across the fields. "What we've always been." Kim nodded thoughtfully. "The galaxy thought humans were soft. Because we talk about peace and cooperation. Because we trade instead of conquer. They mistook kindness for weakness. They won't make that mistake again," Park said quietly. In the medical clinic, Dr. Choi was showing 2 Kreth prisoners how to assist with basic medical tasks. The prisoners had asked if they could help while they waited for transport back to their government. Choi had agreed immediately. One of them, the young female warrior whose arm Choi had set, was learning how to change bandages. She worked carefully. Her 3-fingered hands, gentle despite their size and strength. "You are different from what we were taught," the Kreth said quietly. "Our instructors said humans were weak and emotional. That you valued comfort over strength." Choi smiled. "We are emotional. And we do value comfort. Those aren't weaknesses. They're what we fight to protect. We defend ourselves so we can continue being comfortable and emotional. Does that make sense?" The Kreth thought about it. "I think so. You fight so you do not have to fight?" "Exactly. We're good at violence because we hate violence. We want to live in peace, so we make sure we're too dangerous to attack." Choi finished demonstrating the bandaging technique. "Now you try on this practice dummy." The Kreth warrior carefully mimicked Choi's movements. Her large hands were surprisingly gentle. "If I survive to return home, I will tell others what I learned here. That humans are not weak. And that mercy can be a kind of strength. Commander Vex's Thor was also learning this lesson. Park had given him limited freedom to move around the secured area. The Kreth commander used this privilege to observe the colony and its people. What he saw confused him more every day. He watched Farmer Kim laugh with his crew while repairing equipment. He saw Teacher Lee patiently explaining mathematics to children who had lived through a battle just days before. He observed colonists gathering for a community meal, sharing food and stories like nothing unusual had happened. These were the same people who had destroyed his fleet. The same farmers who had fought with terrifying efficiency. But now, they were just living, growing food, teaching children, building homes. They had gone from deadly warriors to peaceful civilians as easily as changing clothes. One evening, Park invited Vex Thor to join him for dinner. They sat on the porch of Park's residence, eating simple food and watching the sunset. "I have been thinking," Vex Thor said carefully, "about what you said, that you hide your strength to protect weaker colonies. This is a strange strategy." "Is it?" Park asked. "You're a military commander. Haven't you ever used deception in battle?" "Oh, way. Of course. Deception is a valid tactic. Then why is it strange that Earth would use deception on a larger scale? We make some colonies look weak so enemies attack us instead of attacking actual civilians. Those civilians get to live in real peace. And people who attack our weak colonies learn a valuable lesson." Vex Thor was quiet for a moment. "How many colonies like New Sejong does Earth have?" Park smiled but didn't answer directly. "Enough. Let's just say we've thought carefully about frontier defense. So any human colony might be a trap? Or it might be exactly what it looks like. A simple farming community with no hidden defenses. An honest, civilian settlement." Park's smile widened slightly. "The only way to find out is to attack. And if you're wrong, well, you've seen what happens." Vex Thor felt a chill run through his body. It was brilliant and terrifying. Earth had made it impossible to know which colonies were vulnerable and which were deadly. Any attacker would have to assume every human settlement might be another New Sejong. The uncertainty alone would prevent most attacks. "Your species thinks differently than ours," Vex Thor admitted. "Kreth value obvious strength. We display our military might so others will fear us. Humans do the opposite. You hide your strength and appear weak. Both strategies have value," Park said diplomatically. "But humans learned long ago that appearing weak has advantages. People underestimate you. They don't see you as a threat. Then when you reveal your true capabilities, it's too late for them to adapt." Over the next few days, more galactic responses arrived. The Galactic Council officially condemned the Kreth attack. Several species sent diplomatic messages to Earth, requesting information about colony defenses. 3 different governments asked if Earth would be willing to share defensive strategies. Earth's response was polite but firm. Human defensive capabilities were not for sale or sharing. But Earth would be happy to sign mutual defense pacts with peaceful species. The message was clear: be friendly with humanity or leave human space alone. There was no third option anymore. Park received a personal message from Earth's Defense Command. Admiral Torres appeared on his screen, looking pleased. "Governor, I wanted to inform you personally. New Sejong is being recognized for exceptional service to Earth security. You and your entire colony are receiving commendations. Also, your budget request for new farming equipment has been approved. All of it." Park laughed. "We asked for new farming equipment 3 years ago. It took a war to get it approved?" Torres grinned. "Bureaucracy works in mysterious ways. But seriously, Governor, you've done something important here. The entire sector is going to think twice before attacking human settlements now. That makes everyone safer. Not just New Sejong, but every colony in human space." After the call ended, Park went to find his senior staff. They gathered in the conference room, the same room where so much had been planned and decided. Earth is sending us new equipment, Park announced. Real farming equipment this time. Top of the line. They're also sending additional supplies and a commendation for the entire colony. Do we get to keep the weapons? Engineer Han asked practically. Oh yes. The defenses stay exactly as they are. We're still a frontier guard post. Still the first line of defense. But at least now, we can have good farming equipment while we do it. Teacher Li raised her cup of tea in a toast. To New Sejong. The colony that changed the galaxy's mind about humanity. To New Sejong, the others echoed. That night, Park stood outside and looked up at the stars. Up there, in ships and stations across dozens of worlds, people were talking about this little colony. Some with respect, some with fear, some with anger. But all of them were talking. The message had been sent and received. Earth's colonies were not easy targets. Human farmers were not helpless civilians. And humanity's preference for peace should never be mistaken for inability to fight. New Sejong had shown the galaxy something important. That humans didn't need massive fleets or obvious military might to be dangerous. They just needed determination, creativity, and the willingness to defend what was theirs. The Kreeth had learned that lesson in 10 minutes. Now the entire galaxy was learning it too. And Park hoped, truly hoped, that it would make the frontier safer for everyone, that fewer colonies would be attacked, that more people, human and alien alike, could live in peace, because that was what New Sejong had always been about. Not war, not conquest, just the simple desire to farm and build and raise families in peace. The weapons were only tools to protect that peace, and if the galaxy finally understood that, then maybe the battle had been worth it after all. In his secured quarters, Commander Vex Thor was composing another message to his government. This one was longer and more detailed. A complete report on human defensive psychology and strategy. He wanted to make sure his people understood that they would never again make the mistake of underestimating humanity. He ended the message with a simple sentence. The humans are not our enemies, but they will never be our victims either. We must choose our path carefully. Unride. Fortin 23-1. The galaxy was listening now. And that made all the difference. 3 weeks after the battle, Governor Park stood before the Galactic Council. The council chamber was a massive dome filled with representatives from 47 different species. Each had their own communication booth arranged in a circle around the central platform where Park stood. It reminded him of a courtroom, or an arena. Earth's ambassador, Han Jae-sung, stood beside him. The ambassador was an older man, with gray hair and a calm, diplomatic manner. He had whispered advice to Park before they entered. Just tell them the truth. Don't apologize. Don't threaten. Just explain. The council speaker, a tall insectoid being from the Trill species, activated the translation system. Governor Park Min-ho, of New Sejong Colony. This council has called you to explain the events of what is being called the 10-minute war. Many species are concerned. Some are frightened. We need to understand what happened and what it means for galactic security. Park took a deep breath. He had faced enemy soldiers. He had made decisions that cost lives. But standing here, being watched by representatives of dozens of worlds, was somehow more intimidating. Thank you, Council Speaker. Park began. I will tell you exactly what happened and why. New Sejong is a farming colony on the frontier of human space. We grow crops. We raise families. We teach our children. We are, in every meaningful way, a civilian settlement. But our colony also serves another purpose. We are a defensive position. Earth established New Sejong knowing it might be attacked. We were prepared for that possibility. A representative from the Bex consortium interrupted. You deceived the entire sector. Your colony appeared defenseless. This is a violation of honest communication protocols. Ambassador Han stepped forward smoothly. With respect, counselor. There is no galactic law requiring colonies to advertise their defensive capabilities. New Sejong broke no rules. We simply chose not to announce that we could defend ourselves. But why? This from a Velen representative, a peaceful species known for their diplomatic nature. Why hide your strength? Would it not prevent attacks if potential enemies knew the truth? Park nodded. That's a fair question. Let me answer with another question. If New Sejong had looked strong and well defended, would the Kreeth have attacked us? Probably not, the Velen admitted. And if the Kreeth hadn't attacked us, where would they have gone instead? Which colony would they have targeted? One that actually is defenseless. A settlement full of real civilians with no military training. People who would have been killed or enslaved. Park, let that sink in. New Sejong looks weak so that actual weak colonies don't become targets. We draw the predators to us, instead of to them. The council chamber fell silent. Several representatives were communicating privately with their governments. Others were clearly reconsidering their assumptions. We are bait, Park continued. But we are bait with teeth. Any species that attacks human colonies thinking we are easy prey will find out the hard way that we are not. And hopefully, after one or two painful lessons, they will stop attacking entirely. That makes everyone safer. Not just humans, but all peaceful species in this sector. The Trill speaker leaned forward. Governor Park, this council understands defensive measures. But your colony's response was extremely efficient. Almost too efficient. How many of your colonists are actually retired military? Park smiled slightly. Most of them. New Sejong was established specifically for veterans who wanted to retire somewhere peaceful. They earned that peace through years of service. They deserve to live quietly and farm and raise children. The fact that they can still fight if necessary doesn't change that. But this means any human colony might be full of hidden warriors, a nervous representative from the court clans said. How are we supposed to know which colonies are dangerous? You're not, Ambassador Han said bluntly. That's the point. If you don't know which colonies are defended, you can't safely attack any of them. So, the logical choice is simple. Don't attack human colonies at all. Trade with us. Talk with us. Be neighbors with us. But don't attack us. Another representative spoke up. This seems threatening. Are you saying humanity will destroy anyone who acts against you? Park shook his head firmly. No. We're saying we will defend ourselves. There's a difference. The Kreeth attacked us. We defended our home. We didn't pursue them. We didn't invade their territory. We didn't demand reparations. We stopped the attack, secured the prisoners, and went back to farming. All we want is to be left in peace. Then why maintain such strong defenses? The court representative persisted. Park felt a flash of frustration but kept his voice calm. Because wanting peace and being unprepared are not the same thing. My people have seen war. Many of us have lost friends and family to violence. We know what war costs. That's exactly why we prepare to defend ourselves. Because we never want to be helpless victims again. We want to live in peace, and the best way to maintain peace is to be too dangerous to attack. The Velen representative spoke again, more thoughtfully this time. Governor Park, I think I begin to understand. Your species has a saying, yes? About fearing the quiet ones? Several sayings like that, Park confirmed. Beware of the old man in a profession where men die young. The quiet ones are the ones to watch. Still, waters run deep. We have learned through hard experience that looking peaceful is different from being harmless. Your people are warriors pretending to be farmers, the Trill speaker observed. No, Park corrected gently. We are farmers who used to be warriors. There's a difference. We chose to farm. We want to farm. But we haven't forgotten our training. And if someone forces us to fight, we will. Then we'll go back to farming. Over the next hour, the council asked many questions about human defensive strategy, about how many colonies were like New Sejong, about Earth's intentions in the sector. Park and Ambassador Han answered honestly but carefully. They gave enough information to be believable, but not enough to compromise security. Finally, the council speaker called for a vote on a resolution. It was simple and direct. The Galactic Council officially recognized humanity's right to defend its colonies. They condemned the Kreeth attack, and they encouraged all species to pursue peaceful relations with human settlements. The vote was unanimous. After the session ended, Park and Ambassador Han walked through the council station's observation deck. Through the massive windows, they could see dozens of ships from various species, the galaxy's diversity on display. "You did well, Governor," Han said. "Better than I expected. Honestly. You're not a politician, but you understood the real game. It wasn't about explaining the battle. It was about managing fear." "Fear?" Park looked at him questioningly. "The council was afraid," Han explained. "Afraid of what humanity might do. Afraid we might be more dangerous than they realized. Afraid their military assessments of human strength were completely wrong. You calmed those fears, while also making it clear that attacking us is a bad idea. That's diplomacy." Park smiled tiredly. "I prefer farming. Diplomacy is exhausting. Then you'll be happy to know you can go home soon. Earth is sending the transport for the Kreeth prisoners tomorrow. After that, New Sejong can go back to normal. Or, as normal as things get for you." That evening, Park had a final meeting with Commander Vex Thor. The Kreeth commander would be leaving on the transport. This would probably be the last time they spoke. They met in the same conference room where they had first talked after the battle. Park had tea waiting again. This time, Vex Thor drank it without hesitation. "I leave tomorrow," Vex Thor said. "I wanted to thank you before I go." "Thank me?" Park was surprised. "For defeating you? For sparing me? For treating my warriors with dignity? For showing mercy when you could have simply killed us all?" Vex Thor's 4 eyes met Park's gaze directly. "My people value strength. We thought humans were weak because you talk about peace and cooperation. We were wrong. You showed me that mercy can be a form of strength. That choosing not to kill when you have the power to do so is harder than simple violence." Park nodded slowly. "War is easy, Commander. Any fool can start a war. Peace is hard. It requires wisdom and patience and the willingness to see your enemies as people. My species learned that lesson the hard way. We nearly destroyed ourselves before we figured it out." "The Kreeth have not learned this lesson yet," Vex Thor admitted. "We are young compared to humans. Our empire is only 3 centuries old. We believe conquest brings glory. It doesn't," Park said quietly. "Conquest only brings more enemies and more wars. Real glory comes from building things. From creating instead of destroying. From leaving the galaxy better than you found it." Vex Thor was quiet for a long moment. "When I return home, I will be questioned, possibly punished for my failure. But I will tell my government the truth. That humans are not our enemies, but they will never be our victims either. That we must choose a different path if we want to survive in this sector." "I hope they listen," Park said sincerely. "I don't want to fight the Kreeth again. I would rather trade with you. Learn from you. Maybe even become friends eventually. But that's your choice to make." They stood and performed their respective gestures of respect. Vex Thor's was a complex motion with all 4 hands. Park's was a simple bow. Different species, different customs. But maybe, Park thought, some understanding had been reached. The next day, the transport arrived. 2,000 Kreeth prisoners were loaded onto the ship. They were healthy and well treated. Many of them looked confused. A few looked grateful. They had expected death or torture. Instead, they had received medical care and decent food and respect. Dr. Choi came to see them off. Several Kreeth warriors approached her to express thanks. The young female, whose arm she had set, gave Choi a small, carved stone. A traditional Kreth token of respect. You changed my understanding of your species, the warrior said simply. I will remember. As the transport departed, Park stood with his senior staff and watched it rise into the sky. Engineer Han noticed Park's sad expression. You okay, Governor? Just thinking, Park replied. We won the battle. We protected the colony. We even changed some minds about humanity. But I still hate that it was necessary. I hate that people died. I hate that we had to fight at all. That's what makes you a good leader, Teacher Lee said gently. You haven't forgotten that war is terrible. Some commanders start to enjoy it. Start to see enemies as targets instead of people. You never lost your empathy. Empathy, Park repeated. Maybe that's humanity's real weakness. We care too much. We feel too much. Even about our enemies, Farmer Kim laughed. If that's a weakness, I'm happy to have it. I'd rather care too much than become cold and heartless. Our empathy is what makes us human. They walked back to the administration building together. Around them, the colony was fully recovered. The fields were green and growing. Children played in the schoolyard. The sounds of construction and conversation filled the air. Life had returned to normal. That afternoon, Park wrote his final report to Earth Defense Command. He detailed the battle and the aftermath. He included observations about Kreth tactics and psychology. He provided recommendations for future defensive strategies. But he ended the report with a personal note. New Sejong has performed its function successfully. We defended ourselves and sent a message to the galaxy. But I want to be clear about something. My colonists did not come here to be warriors. They came here to build lives, to farm and raise families and be part of a community. The fact that they can still fight when necessary does not mean they want to. I request that Earth continue to pursue peaceful relations with all species. War should always be our last option, not our first response. We proved we can win battles. Now let's prove we can win peace. 3 months later, Park stood in his fields at harvest time. The crops had grown beautifully. It would be a good year. Around him, colonists worked together to bring in the harvest. They laughed and talked and helped each other. This was what they had fought to protect. Not land or resources or political power. Just the simple right to live peaceful lives. A ship appeared in the sky. Park tensed automatically, then relaxed as he recognized it. An Earth transport, bringing supplies and new colonists. People who had heard about New Sejong and wanted to be part of something special. Veterans looking for peace. Families seeking opportunity. Park smiled. The galaxy knew the truth about New Sejong now. But people still wanted to come here. Not because it was safe, not because it was easy, but because it was a community that valued both strength and kindness. A place where you could be a farmer and a defender, a teacher and a warrior, a doctor and a protector. A place where humans could be completely, honestly, themselves. Peaceful when possible. Fierce when necessary. Always adaptable. Always resilient. Always ready to do whatever it took to protect the things they loved. That evening, Park sat on his porch and watched the sunset. He thought about Commander Vexy's Thor, and wondered if the Kreth commander had successfully shared his message. He thought about the Galactic Council, and hoped they understood humanity better now. He thought about all the colonists who had fought beside him, and gone back to their normal lives, without complaint. Mostly, he thought about the future. About harvests to come and children to teach and lives to build. About the simple, profound satisfaction of creating something good in a vast and often dangerous galaxy. New Sejong had shown the galaxy that humans were not easy prey. But more importantly, they had shown that humans were worth knowing, worth trading with, worth respecting. Not because of their weapons, but because of their character. Because they could be fierce and gentle, strong and kind, prepared for war but devoted to peace. The galaxy had learned its lesson. Earth's colonies were not targets. They were neighbors. And that made all the difference. Park finished his tea and went inside. Tomorrow there would be more work to do. Fields to tend, equipment to maintain, reports to file, children to teach, homes to build, all the simple, important tasks of daily life. The things worth fighting for, the things worth protecting, the things that made humanity special. Not their weapons, or their tactics, or their defensive strategies, but their refusal to give up. Their determination to build instead of destroy. Their ability to show mercy, even in victory. Their choice to farm when they could have conquered. That was humanity's real strength, and no enemy would ever take it away.